Wyatt begins in life. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Wyatt, and I'm your host, Wyatt O'Brien Evans. Woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof. Well, my listeners, today's very, very special guest is a multi-hyphenate artiste. He's an author, singer, songwriter, performer, columnist, and a bishop to boot. And what's so exceptional about this gentleman is that he made it through the storm of enduring a harrowing experience with intimate partner violence and abuse, or ipva, to claim his best life. We'll talk with him about that a little later in the show. You know what you need to do right after this show? Visit my online home, WyattEvans.com. That's WyattEvans, WyattEvans.com. The go-to destination for LGBTQ news, features, commentary, and entertainment. And y'all, I'm doing backflips across Pennsylvania Avenue and Washington, D.C. because WyattEvans.com is visited by nearly 100 countries. Correcto mundo. A sidebar. I'm just kidding about the backflip thing. You know, I've been having some back issues. I'm feeling better because of those muscle relaxants. They sure make you feel like mellow. And while you're at WyattEvans.com, check out my Smoking Hot. That's HAWT hot. Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, which are chock full of masculine romance, action, adventure, and intrigue. The current installment is titled Frenzy! Hey, it's all on the yummy, yum. Oh boy, I hate to say this, but speaking of not being on the yummy, yum one little bit, I've got my sidekick, Madam Pussy Galore, Cock-a-doodle-doo, here up in the house. Her face is all up in the mic. What you got to say? Oh, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, just clutch the pearls and stop the train. Hey, guess what? Oh, God, I'll bite what? Yes, Mr. Well, I would love to bite you. Maybe I'll do it when we're off the air. You know what? You be absolutely unbelievable. Well, Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, you can believe this. I'm now an authoress, a writing diva. Oh my God. OMG. But Mr. Wyatt O'Brien Evans, au contraire. Yes. And my new book is called, and pay close attention, is Popular Penetration. How to treat your man's big old cucumber in just the right way. And you know what, Mr. Well? I get so moist, particularly between my breasts. What'd I say that title? What? And let me tell you where you can purchase your very own copy of Popular Penetration. Okay. At Amazon, at Barnes & Nobles, etc. And let's not forget at my website, JuicyGirls.com. And let me spell it for you. For everyone, that's JuicyGurls, JuicyGirls.com. And you can also get Popular Penetration at fine bathhouses all across the US of A. Bathhouses? Ms. Headcase, aren't all bathhouses closed due to, like, Ms. Rona, the big C? I will not answer that. And I am not a head case. I am not. But I do. I really give like good. Let me tell you something. Mr. Wow! Mr. Wyatt! I'm Brian Evans! You're unhinged! You made me unhinged, madam? Pussy galore, cock-a-doodle-doo. Enough of your antics and your shenanigans. Just get out! Get the hell out! She's gone. Thank God she's gone. Anyway, now to our special guest. You know what? This guy is a dynamic and emerging voice within the LGBTQ community. Currently residing in Atlanta, hot Atlanta. He's a multi-faceted talent. He's an author, columnist, singer, songwriter, performer. His best-selling novel is 3 words, 4 letters. Don't you just love that title? So clever. And his latest literary work is titled The Night Eddie Salas Died. And we'll talk about that later. Now, a bronze prize winner of the International Society of Poets, our guest has penned editorials for the Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier in Iowa. And his column, Heartstrings, is one of the gems of WyattEvans.com, the go-to destination, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, the brother has charted at #1 several times on the Reverb Nation pop music charts. His current works are Stay With Me and Romantic Warrior, Angelic Troublemaker. Hey, did y'all know that I am a romantic troublemaker? I is. And y'all check this out. He's a bishop of national and international social action, part of New Direction Overcomers International Fellowship based in Richmond, Virginia. So without further ado, Wyatt welcomes the absolutely awesome Bishop Hartsel Clifton Shirley. Talk at me. How the hell are ya?
I'm doing pretty good, man. How about
you? Well, did you like that intro?
Yeah, well, it's quite an intro. It's one of the longest intros I've ever had.
See, listen,
yes,
that is why you need to hire me as your PR guy.
Well, you know what? When some of these #1 things in the accomplishments pay off, and there's real coins coming, we'll talk.
That's the date. Well, you know what? Again, I want to thank you for dropping by Wyatt. And, we at WyattEvans.com refer to you as our historian.
Yeah.
Because your column titled Heartstrings,
mm-hmm.
You enlighten and educate us about, significant figures and moments in time
mm-hmm.
of LGBTQ history, particularly Black LGBTQ history.
Yes.
And Heartstrings, my man, is wickedly popular. So speaking for the rest of WyattEvans.com family, thank ya.
Oh, so it's my absolute honor and pleasure, actually, too.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Now, your new column dropped a few days ago. So
it did?
A few days ago. So why not give us a brief synopsis of what it's all about?
The new column is actually, I don't want to say too much because I want people to read it and not think they got the highlights, and so they don't have to read. But it's a story that has been lived by many of us who are same gender loving. It's about a football player,
mm-hmm.
and who had a rough time coming to grips with his sexuality and more. I'll just leave it there. I don't want to say too much.
Well, y'all, look, that is a very good teaser. So visit WyattEvans.com and check out the new installment of Heartstrings, and you'll be glad you did. Now, Hartsel, let's travel down the corridors of time.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, well, now.
Okay.
You were born in Waterloo, Iowa, which is a fairly small town. Am I correct about that?
Well, in Iowa, it's actually one of the bigger cities.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So I did a little research, and currently Waterloo is like 16% Black.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what was it like growing up there
Oh,
being African American?
growing up there being African American, well, so I was born in '69, so I was a child of the '70s, and so the '70s was sugar, a wide cross section of culture. I mean, I watched Hee Haw as a child,
Right.
It was the Globetrotters, sugar, and oh gosh, and stereo. Put it that way. I can only think of those things that really were prevalent in the '70s growing up.
Okay. That sounds good.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, your family structure, are you like the youngest, the oldest? What do you
I'm
think?
the eldest child.
Oh, how was it being the eldest?
Oh, oh my gosh. Um, it had its perks. I always had my own room, so that was
Nice.
real cool. And but then I was also responsible for the other. Well, for a while it was only two, and then much later there came two more. So I was the responsible one.
Great. Now, you know what, Hartsel? I always like to ask my guests this question, and here it is.
Okay.
What were you like as a boy, as a little nipper? Give us 3 characteristics or qualities that best describe you as a little boy.
I would say unabashed, lively, and sensitive.
Okay. That's a nice mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you get into trouble as a kid, little boy?
Well, because kids see stuff and they say what they see, and so I was just a little too unbridled and said too much about what I saw.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
and I wasn't
Uh,
wrong about what I saw either. So I just
okay.
didn't know that there's a time and a place to say what you saw.
You were interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's,
Adults couldn't use words around me or say things because I understood the connotation. I mean,
oh,
I've been able to spell some things, but I didn't miss what they meant at all. At
gotcha.
all. I was that child.
Okay. Cool.
Mm,
Let's fast forward. You've got a master's degree in business, correct?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to make business your major?
Well, actually, it took a while for me to go back to school. I was never wanted to follow a traditional path. I didn't go to college right after high school. But when President Obama was president, I knew he was going to be president long enough for me to continue without getting furthering my education. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided to bite the bullet and get back into school.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, so let's fast forward to 1987.
Ooh.
I believe that was the start of your experience with intimate partner violence and abuse, or IPVA.
Yes, it was.
Now, but before you begin, allow me to present the audience with a quick, as I call it, IPVA primer.
Right.
Okay, here we go, everybody. In the LGBTQ community, domestic violence and abuse is commonly known as intimate partner violence and abuse, the acronym being IPVA. And the following is so important to always keep in mind. And here it is. Anyone, and I do mean anyone, regardless of size, strength, age, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, and or income, can become a victim of IPVA. And I know because I'm a survivor. And statistics show that IPVA occurs more frequently than one believes and wants to acknowledge. Therefore, it tends to be dramatically underreported. And stigma is the major culprit for that because let's face it, we guys don't want anyone to know that another man is whooping our ass. We just don't. And there are many signs of IPVA. Now, the most telling sign is fear of your partner, that you feel you have to like walk on eggshells around him. Hartsel, your experience with IPVA prompted you to write the song Running Back to Me.
Yes.
Before we play it, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so when my producer gave me the track and I heard it, I mean, I think the track, he actually called it "Running Back to Me" or something, or maybe not. I forget what the original title might have been. But when I heard it, I was like, "Oh wow, this could." I mean, the words just came instantly, and so I tell the emotional, especially the emotional story of what I went through with my first partner with it. It was an opportunity to. And a last good opportunity to really tell what happened in a way that I have never told it before.
Right. Okay. Well, everyone here is Running Back to Me by Hartsel Shirley. Wow, man, that was right on point. Okay, now, Hartsel.
Yes.
Please tell us in detail, if you would, your experience with intimate partner violence and abuse. How old were you when this cycle of abuse started?
I was 18. I was a virgin until I was 18, and this was a few months after graduating high school. I actually found out through a grade school friend that there was a gay bar in town, which surprised the hell out of me because I was
Yeah.
really, really. And so he said, "Yeah, well, just we lived a block apart from each other." And so he said, "Well, just Friday night, just follow me down to the bar." So Friday night at the time, when the time came, I followed him to the bar, and I was like, "Get out of here!" I had been having lunch in high school almost every day, like across the railroad tracks from where this bar was. And I was like, I know this bar it looked like a great big house. And so I was like, this is where the bar is. In this, and I was mesmerized by just floored that this place was actually a bar. So anyway, so I go to the bar and, I'm 18 and this is all brand new to me, but the music was really good. We had Swing Out Sister, we had the Eurythmics, we had Culture Club, we had Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, Prince, and Alexander O'Neal. All this good music was there. So I was like, okay, cool, because I can, and if nothing else, I can at least listen to the music. And so I was too young to drink, so I would have Pepsi, Pepsi and dance. That's all I did for a few months, and yeah, that's all I could do. So, but in there were 5 other gay black folks, and I think this first night then there was like 2 other folks that had used to live in the town, but they had moved out of town. So there was at tops 10 black gay folks, but the rest was all not black folks, and so for about 3 months, I'm just having Pepsi and dancing. And then I found out that there was a pre-bar place and an after-bar place.
Wow.
And at the pre-bar place was where who become my first partner was. And he took an interest in me there, but I'm like, oh, man, please, I'm ready to go to the bar. And, but that night afterwards, we went back to the bar for the after party. And I ended up sitting next to him on the couch, and he tried to talk to me, and I'm like rolling my eyes, but I'm, not feeling him, not trying to get involved.
Were you trying to play hard to get?
I wasn't actually trying to play hard to get. I just wasn't interested in him. He just did nothing for me. And so I had to work the next morning at 6 a.m. So it's like 1 o'clock. So I'm like, okay, I need to go so I can like get a piece of sleep and then go to work. So I go out to my car and I had an old Maverick. So, Maverick did not have automatic doors where I could just lock it from my side. So
right.
he got in the car with me. And so he was just trying to talk to me and talk to me and talk to me. And I'm rolling my eyes and I'm really giving serious attitude. But he's talking and talking anyway. And so it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, what would it take to get you out of my car?
Oh, God.
He says, well, can I have a kiss? Will that get you out of my car? Okay. So I let him kiss me. He stays in the car. I'm like, okay, now look, you got to go, man. I have to go home. I need to get to work. Okay, what would it take? Well, what really would take for you to get out of my car? Well, can I have your phone number? Okay, here is my phone number. I live with my parents right now. So he took the phone number and then he did get out the car. So, like I said, the next morning I'm at work at 6 o'clock. There are no customers in the store, and he comes into the store.
Really?
Yes. And he apparently he walked through the whole store to and then found me, and I didn't think anything of it, but right. I really should have taken note of it. It was a red flag that I dismissed. It just wrote it off, but I really should have taken note of it. It was a warning.
Well, do you think it was simply because he was really into you, or do you believe, or in hindsight, do you believe it was simply he was just, enthusiastic and he was into you, or do you believe it was the beginning of stalking?
Both, probably. More than likely, both. Further down into the relationship, we can get into where he stalked. But in any case, we did begin a relationship, and it turns out that he was married. And,
oh no!
Yeah, when I found that out, he actually had called me, and he was having an argument with his wife while he was on the phone with me. So I was like, "Man, do you need some space? Need some, no, I got this under control. We're gonna get divorced any minute." any second now. All I gotta do is sign the papers. Okay, if you say so. So things continued for a while, and then the rules at the bar changed, and so I couldn't get in at all. You had to be 21, and like I said, I was only 18. So he had me staying with him in his apartment. So
Really?
Yes, he had his wife thinking that I was his cousin.
What?
Yes, and I don't know what story he told her for her to believe that, but she thought I was his cousin. And so he and I would sleep in the daughter's bedroom on the floor, while the wife and the baby slept in the master bedroom. And this one night, he comes in, he doesn't say anything at all, and he positions himself on me, and he rapes me.
Wait a minute. So he forcibly,
Yes,
anally,
yes,
rapes you.
yes.
Didn't get your consent. He just...
No, he didn't say anything at all. No words, no nothing. And of course, I'm only 5'4". And back then I probably weighed 130 pounds. And so he was taller and you weighed more. And so he had me pinned down and I couldn't get away. He had my arms locked down. He had my legs locked down. I could barely move from side to side.
And so he clearly heard your protests.
I protested as loudly as I could without causing the wife or the baby to wake up.
Right.
Because that really would have been something, a whole nother set of issues.
Did that happen more than once, or was it a one-off thing?
That happened that one time, but that one time was all it took for him to do psychological and physical damage.
I am so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, intimate partner violence and abuse, there are three types. Basically, you've got your physical, you have your physical, and that includes sexual abuse as well. You have your mental, and you have your emotional. What types of mental, emotional abuse did you specifically experience?
Oh gosh. So one of his big things was, I don't like mind games. I like mind games. But he was the one playing mind games. I didn't know how to play any mind games. I was 18 and this is my first relationship. So I had never even thought to try to be manipulative or anything. But he was the one who was manipulative. He was controlling. And he even had this thing that he said once in my presence while we were at the bar. Do it to them before they do it to you.
What did he mean exactly?
I think he suspected that I was going to cheat or that I cheated on him. So that was one of his excuses to do it, to cheat.
Oh.
And the first time that he did, it broke my heart. I mean, and I gave you an Emmy and Oscar award performance. You know, I wore the dark glasses and cried day and night and over this too. And he came by I had gotten an apartment. He came by my place and told me that he wanted to leave me for this person.
Really?
And then 2 weeks later, he comes back and he's crying, and I'm trying my best, as my best I could, to give attitude like I no, but he wore me down. He was my first, and like I said, the selection of black men was slim to none. So what I'm gonna do? Say no?
Well, did he ever make you feel like if you left him, nobody would want you? That type of crap?
Oh, of course. Well, see, he knew that he had an advantage being who he was, because he was like the choice in the arena. So who else is going to want you? Where are you going to go? You know.
Can you give us other examples of how he tried to control you?
Oh, well, he would make promises. He made promises that we were going to get married. He knew somebody in Wisconsin. He said, we're going to get married one of these days. We're going to get married. Or he said, one day, everything I have is going to be yours. But you got to stay with me. You can't look at anybody else. You can't be cheating with me. You can't do this, and all these kind of restrictions that I couldn't do, or else I would lose out.
But meanwhile, he was cheating on you.
Meanwhile, whenever he felt like it, he would cheat. And
Well, you know,
he cheated so much, and I mentioned in this song, I called him a serial cheater because he was. And he did it so much that I grew numb for a while.
Yeah.
To it, and you know, and I think Dolly Parton had a song called "Here You Come Again," and that's what it was like. Oh, here he comes again. You know, so well, okay, here he comes. I already know the drill.
And also,
Each time I'm not expecting him to leave again because I'm trying to hold on to this idea of love that I had.
did he ever say things or do things to, like did he say things to belittle you, to make you feel small, to really chip away at your self-esteem?
Oh yeah, well, towards the end, I had met his ex, and his ex filled me in on all of the things that he had done with him, and his ex told me he's going to do this, he's going to do this, he's going to do this, he's going to try to cry. Don't believe any of that. don't believe him. And so, he didn't like that I had befriended his ex, and that his ex actually was receptive to me. And so he would say stuff like, "Oh, the whole they got to you real good. They had trained you real good. They done got to your mind. They done taught you. They done talked to you. They done brainwashed you." As if I couldn't think for myself. As if the experiences I had with him wasn't enough to finally wake me up or start wake me up.
He sounds like the king of asses, the epitome of an asshole.
Oh, he really was. And so when things ended, when we were supposed to be getting back together again, and so in the middle of being intimate, he stops and he accuses me of being with someone else. And it just broke my heart like it was the first time all over again. I never had time to recover when he would leave and come back. He never left long enough for me to begin to recover. And so I remember I had gotten this hotel room. So I remember being in that hotel room and I'm crying my eyes out and I'm thinking to myself, how many times can one heart break? How many times how much can one person take? And so I made up my mind to I was going to leave town. I was going to join the military, leave town. And that way he couldn't play on my emotions anymore. He couldn't play on the fact that he was the choice at the time for a partner. And so I made up my mind. That was going to be it. And came back by my apartment one time before I left, before I was going to leave. And he tried to wrestle me. And this wasn't the first time that he tried to wrestle me. The first time he dug his fingers so hard into my arm that he left his fingerprints, his from his nails, left the print there, and the print stayed there for years.
You must really?
Yes, for years, and I was so, and it was so, and you can see it. And I wore long sleeve shirts so that I could cover it up. So because I didn't want to have to answer, because it was obvious that somebody had tried to grab me and do that. You can see all of his fingernail prints in my arm.
You know, Hartsel, how did you make your great escape? And I've coined the phrase great escape for my seminars and workshops. So how did you finally make your great escape from this idiot?
Okay. Well, the plan for my great escape, as I said, was I was going to go to the military. That way he couldn't contact me. He couldn't reach me. He couldn't find me at all. And that was thwarted by a letter that I got in the mail from the military telling me that I had tested positive.
For HIV?
For HIV. And back then they didn't say HIV. They said human immunodeficiency virus. They didn't say HIV yet. And so, of course, I'm heartbroken all over again. All over again. And so I made up in my mind that I would do my best to never, ever, ever see him again as much as possible.
So he gave you HIV?
He did it. I was a virgin until I met him.
Oh, my goodness. Where is he now?
Now he passed. I actually didn't go to the funeral. I only heard through a friend that at first I heard his health was declining. He was going blind. Then I heard that he had passed.
I am so glad you made your great escape. And I want to tell the audience, Hartsel, that silence is the most potent weapon the abuser has in his or her arsenal. You know, that is why it is absolutely crucial that you tell somebody that you trust. And at WyattEvans.com, there are resources that can help you make your great escape. Wow. I want to thank you for having the courage to share your story, because we have to keep shining a bright light on this potentially life-threatening cycle of behavior, because people have died.
Right.
And, you know, the bottom line is love ain't supposed to hurt.
No, it is not. Love is actually easy. It is never hard, and it never hurts. People who say it's hard, well, what love does is challenges us to grow.
Absolutely.
And so when you think that love is hard, it's really only trying to make you grow up and mature.
I couldn't have said it better. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a perfect segue here. You're a bishop.
Yes.
Why did you decide to walk that path?
Well, okay, for one thing, the Bible says it's a good thing to desire to be a bishop. So that was one of the motivating things. But my first partner there, was actually a preacher as well. And so
this idiot that
yes.
did okay.
Yes. And so I was not, at the time I wasn't really in church, but I started going to church because this man was driving me emotionally crazy. And so I needed to find some place where there's some peace and there's something solid. And, you know, we tend to think that that's church. And so it was for me. And so it even got to the point where he actually forbid me to go to church. Verbally forbid me to go. So I went even more. You know, I rebelled and I went even more. And
good.
Yeah. And so, so which also goes into where some of the stalking that he did. My apartment was on one side of this highway, and he had a cousin that lived on the other side. And his cousin could see my car and see if I was home. And so he would call his cousin just to check on me and see if I was home.
Mm-hmm.
Or he would drive by himself to see if I was home. Or so some of those times I wasn't at home, I was at church. So, it drove me even more into church. And so I actually ended up joining church, as I said. And then one of the things that when I found out that I was positive, I came to God and I said, okay, look, this is what my conversation in my head to God. I don't know what you can make of what's left of my life, but here, God, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
I was really at my wit's end, and this is after having considered suicide.
Wait a minute. So let's back that up. So you actually considered?
Oh, definitely. I considered suicide because back then the options for treatment for what they later called HIV were slim to none.
Right.
And so,
because this was the 90s for you, right?
No, well, this was still the late 80s.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So there was little to no help, and I had no idea where to turn or who to even trust to tell anything to. And some of those avenues he cut off because of trying to ruin what reputation I had, and blaming stuff on me when it was actually him.
Classic abuser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not thinking that I had any life left to live, I was going to end it myself.
Wow. Yeah. And you were young and you didn't have the coping skills.
No coping skills. No.
Yeah, some of the coping skills that you would have had being older and more experienced.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard it before. This is classic. Because I've interviewed lots of folks who didn't know what to do. Again, particularly men, because we do not want other people to know that another man is,
Oh my gosh! Especially in my hometown, as small as the black population is, my mother grew up there, so she knew some of everybody.
Right.
My father was so cool; he was like everybody's friend. I had no place of safety. I had nowhere to hide. I had nowhere to turn, and no one to trust enough to confide in.
It's stigma. We do not want people to know that men are kicking our asses, that sort of thing. So our avenues can be slim to none, and suicide could be what we believe is the way out. Let me ask you, how does being a bishop nurture you? How has that changed your life?
Being a bishop doesn't so much nurture me, but to have arrived at the place to be considered for the bishopric and to actually become one, it shows that I had some fortitude, that I have a whole lot more substance than a lot of folks may have given me, or even my first partner would have given me. That I actually really have depth, that I have intelligence, that I'm not. I'm someone to I'll say this very humbly. I'm a force to be reckoned with. I'll put it that way. Which does build self-esteem, which I was really lacking back then. It does boost the self-esteem to a good extent.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears, Hartsel, and talk about your music.
Yes.
It's my understanding that your interest in music, at least early on, was sparked by your father, your dad.
Oh yeah, my dad was actually a musician. He played bass. And he actually started out on piano, but the traditional story of a lot of folks who started on piano, when you don't do your lesson and you get tapped on the knuckles. Well, he got tapped on his knuckles one time too many, and so he decided to try another instrument. And so his father was actually a musician too.
Oh, wow.
So there were instruments all around, and so he actually picked up the bass, and he actually was self-taught.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he became so good that when he was in the Army and overseas, Ike Tina Turner needed a bass player to fill in because Ike fired the bass player, which Ike was known to do. And so word had got around about my dad, and so my dad got to fill in.
Awesome.
Yeah. So music was always around, and so he had this huge album collection. I mean, this back in the 70s, the stereos were huge, and so he had these big speakers, and all these albums were lined up in front of these speakers, and so I was just mesmerized by all those albums. And he had the Supremes. I can
imagine.
Yeah, he was big on Motown, Temptations, Marvin Gaye, all of that. So music was always around. And then in the 70s, there was only AM radio for a good while. So they played some of everybody, white, black, rock, pop, country, everything. So music was always there for me.
Well, let's talk about your latest work, Romantic Warrior, Angelic Troublemaker. Like I said, that's a great title. There's got to be meaning behind that.
Yes. Okay. Romantic Warrior comes from when I was in one of my stints in college. There was an older gentleman who was I was in this particular program with, and I didn't know he had been observing me at all. And we had gone on a retreat, and coming back from this, I think I had written something in the newspaper that had to do with 911. And we were sitting in the office one day, and somehow we had struck up conversation. And he said, "You're a romantic warrior." And I don't even remember what else he said after that, because I was just so floored that he had observed me, and that he put those two words together for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So it stuck. So the angelic troublemaker part comes from Wyatt, who said, we need everywhere we are, we need angelic troublemakers.
For everyone who doesn't know, tell us who Mr. Rustin is and what impact he has had.
Mr. Rustin was actually a very, very astute social justice person before the two words were put together in social justice.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that even back in 1947, he refused to give up his seat on the bus. So this is before Rosa,
Mm-hmm.
and he was one of the main speechwriters for in the earlier years for Martin Luther King. They marched together. He was there at the I Have a Dream speech.
And he was gay. He was black and gay, and his gayness,
was
an issue.
It became
back then.
It became an issue, and unfortunately, a well-known senator from New York said some things to Martin Luther King that made Martin have Bart step back some. So he wasn't in the forefront like he was before in the civil rights movement.
And of course, J. Edgar Hoover was tracking him.
Was tracking some of everybody back then. Yeah.
And he was in the closet gay himself.
Right, which is just so
freaking hypocritical.
Yes. To put it lightly. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just blows your mind. It just blows your freaking mind.
Right. So a minority is going to suppress a minority,
Let's move on to The Night Eddie Salas Died. That's your latest work. And it's a true recounting of Mr. Salas, who died in a Waterloo, Iowa jail under suspicious circumstances in 1966.
Yes.
So what moved you to write about this?
So in that stint in college where I met the gentleman who called me the romantic warrior, I was in a bunch of study circles, and these study circles were around race. And this particular one was with the NAACP.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never been to any in the NAACP meeting in my hometown before, but this one was with the NAACP and the police. And so this evening at this meeting, there's a city council person on my right side, and the sheriff of the time on my left side, and we're having discussion about race and the police and all this kind of stuff. And so there comes a point where the city council person nudges me and says, "Ask the sheriff about what really happened to Eddie Salas." So when I could jump in real quick and ask a question, I asked the sheriff, what really happened to Eddie Salas? And so the sheriff goes, "No, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. We're not here to talk about that." And I was like, why? Because we're talking about race and this happened. And so the city council person nudged me, says, again, he said the way that the jail cells were made back then, it was impossible for someone to hang themselves. And so again, there's the sheriff shuts it down. We're going to talk about that. And so I had this big question in my head. Well, what really did happen to him?
Right.
And so since that was 2002, so over the years, as I got more proficient online looking to find stuff, I looked and found what I could, get what little I could get. And it was so big that the National Guard was called in.
Wow.
There was a lot of protests around this time. This happened on the late night and early morning, going from Memorial Day into June 1st. So the next morning, this is huge. It makes a lot of noise, and there were protests. There were riots, and so it was really, really big. And racism had been so big in Iowa, which people don't think about. So in the book, I cover how Iowa actually grew and how they even had to vote whether they wanted to allow Black folks into the state.
Lord.
So I give history of the state, the county, and then my hometown and show how racism really kind of played a big part in Eddie Salas' story.
Y'all, you need to get a copy of The Night Eddie Salas Died.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I want you to help me with something. I have kicked off a new segment of the show where, like, for a minute or two, we can just vent about anything we want,
Mm-hmm.
And do you know what the name of this segment is?
What?
Let me tell you something. You know what? Saying it is such a stress reliever. So let me do it
Oh,
one more time. Let me tell you something.
mm,
Okay. So what do you want to talk about?
mm.
What comes to your head?
I think the first thing that comes in my mind is the black gay community being so cliquish.
Yes. Why is that?
In my guesstimation, it comes down to insecurity.
Okay.
We like our comfort zones, and we don't want to break out of them.
Right.
We talk to our four and no more. Right, and which is so it's really not cool. So I'll make up a scenario. So,
Okay.
which is sort of kind of true, actually. So imagine a poor young waif coming into Atlanta from Iowa.
Okay. Okay. Okay, y'all, listen. A poor young waif coming from Iowa to Atlanta.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
So all these social circles are all set up, and so this young waif is trying to navigate and makes connections, but because these social circles are all so closed off, they end up traveling alone and being a familiar face rather than someone getting to know them.
Now, before you continue really quickly, this poor young waif from Iowa into Atlanta is a Black SGL, same gender loving or gay male.
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, got it.
That
All
makes
right.
it even more specific.
Yeah.
So yeah. So the flip side of that also is that it makes that young way for that person who might be in that situation. It actually makes them stronger
I
because
like that.
they're able to stand on their own
I like that.
without needing these social circles. But when it's convenient for him, he can make those contacts, or they can contact him because he's always available.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so my audience, let me tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
You must stop being so goddamn cliquish. Be more inclusive and be more welcoming.
Yes.
Thank you.
You have so much to gain from it.
Absolutely. You know what? You're very smart.
I have moments. I have moments.
Okay, well, what do you have on tap for the rest of 2021?
The rest of the year, hopefully, this Corona thing gets under control, because that put a big damper on a whole lot of things. But
Oh, yeah.
hopefully, the second and third parts to 3 words, 4 letters, as you mentioned, will be able to be released, and hopefully another CD.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Now, how do we grab copies of your books and your music? And would you give us the titles of both, please?
Okay, so the next in the 3 words, 4 letters, was actually a 3-part series. So the next book is called 3 Words, and then the last book would be called 4 Letters. And so to get the first copy, which because I still have some available of 3 words, 4 letters, you just hit me up on Facebook.
Got it.
I'm always there. I check it frequently, probably too much, but I check it frequently. And for my first CD, Stay With Me, that's actually on Amazon. You can get that anywhere, and you can get that on Amazon, and then it's available on a lot of streaming sites as well. One of the ones that I use, if you like just digital downloads, my go-to place is bandcamp.com.
Can you spell that for us, please?
BANDCAMP.com. Bandcamp.
Okay. Got it.
And they don't charge any tax or anything like that. So that's a plus.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
And it's a very, very, very extremely secure site. You can download the whole project, or you can just download songs that you like from there. And
that is so cool.
Right. And that goes for a Romantic Warrior, Angelic Troublemaker is available there as well. That one did not become a whole full CD because Corona kicked in and stuff.
Miss Rona.
Yeah, she's a bad girl.
Well, now, how do us grown folk connect with you, contact you, follow you? Give us every social media you got.
You can hit me up on Twitter. You can hit me up on Instagram. And like I said, you can hit me up on Facebook.
Wonderful. Well, Mr. Bishop Hartsel Clifton Shirley, thank you for visiting. Wyatt, will you come back?
I sure will.
Love to have you back. So y'all, there you have it. You can find the official Wyatt podcast page on WyattEvans.com, and the official hashtag is Wyatt on Air. And if you want to be a guest on Wyatt, or you just have comments, you can email me at wyattonair@gmail.com. And you can follow me, Wyatt O'Brien Evans, your host, on Facebook.com, on Twitter at Mr. Woe. That's MISTERWOE, Mr. Woe. And on Instagram at Mr. Wyatt O. And be sure to check out my Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, the latest being Frenzy! And his predecessor, Rage, all at WyattEvans.com. So until next time, woof, goddammit, woof, woof, woof!